Hello, this is John Morris Pendleton, chemist, scientist, auto mechanic, mid-husband, father of 8, happily married man, bringing you our conferences on creation, evolution, dinosaurs, the Bible, and this time we're going to look at fossils. Fossils are something that lived at one time and then turned into rock. They're like a register of what things used to be in the past. We have this diagram of evolution, which tries to give us the idea that from one cell to a multi-cell and different creatures, that eventually we evolved into man. Now that's a drawing. It is not science. First of all, I want to establish that there are 3 key factors necessary in order to make fossils, to fossilize something. You need rapid death, rapid burial, and rapid pressure. If you don't have one of these 3 key factors, it could be you don't make a fossil. Now, I would be sorry if it would happen, but it does happen that if you have a pet cat or pet bird or a pet dog, they die sometimes. Now, if you put your dead pet out in the front yard or in the backyard and you put a sign out, scientific experiment, fossil formation, you will not make a fossil. First, it will rot and stink. It'll grow ugly looking worms, and it'll just be a mess. It will not make fossils. You need rapid death, rapid burial, rapid pressure in order to make a fossil. As we mentioned another time, but I want to repeat again here, whenever fossils are found in the ground, they're always found without a name tag telling us what it is or a sticker telling us how old it is. People, according to their beliefs, according to their way of looking at things, put on the names and the dates. As we already saw earlier in our 5th conference of how the dating method just does not work. Things are basically young. It's a young earth. Not millions of years old, but a few thousand of years old. Now, in the evolutionary idea, we expect in this upper part of the diagram to see a series, a sequence, a chain, if you please, of slight gradual changes from one species to another, each one changing a little bit more, and thereby we get all the different life forms through a chain of changes. And we would expect to find these in the fossil record. As a creationist, one that believes in the Bible, we believe that there was a worldwide flood that buried lots and lots of living things, and now they're fossilized. And so we'd expect to find exact, distinct species fossilized, but there won't be any intermediate or transitional connection between them. First, let's take a look at some very interesting fossils. These 2 are especially interesting. Here you have a larger fish caught right in the middle of eating, swallowing a smaller fish. And all of them are fossilized. Now, for one thing, this is a good evidence for rapid death, rapid pressure, rapid burial, as would occur in a worldwide flood. And of course, the thing is, they're all fossilized. Notice the perfection. You can see in the bottom one here of the fins and the tail lines, the ribs and everything, even the eyes. Amazing detail. This one is an extremely beautiful fossil of an ichthyosaurus. Actually, it's a female ichthyosaurus, and she's just given birth, as you can see here, one of her offspring. The article says that inside of her rib cage they counted any 3 to 4 other young that had not been given birth to yet. But notice the precision of her backbone, their rib cage, her different flippers, her long beaked mouth where her eye was, all perfectly formed and preserved. An excellent fossil. I had some neighbors here in Mexico that are school teachers at the secondary and high school level and in science. And they had an excellent collection of books printed by Life magazine on different aspects of life here on the earth. One of them was about fish. And so this actual transparency was taken from that book, and this is what it says. A dead bluegill falls to the bottom of a lake. sediments slowly cover the intact body. Many millions of years later, the lake disappears, and the superimposed sediments press the fish, and obviously forming it into a fossil. Now, let me ask you folks, when a fish dies, if it's not real big, what usually happens to that fish? If it dies in your aquarium or dies in a river or lake, what happens to that fish? Does it sink to the bottom of the lake or float? It floats, doesn't it? But here, Life magazine is telling us that it sinks to the bottom. Now that's not true to what we have observed. This is where they're making up fascinating stories that are not plugged into the truth. We have some new fossils that I've gotten, and I'll have to show you this to you later because they're further down the stack. One of the fossils that supposedly supports evolution is the fossil series of the horses. Now they say that first of all, the horse came from a creature that was about a foot tall and had 4 toes on every hoof. Then it changed into one that was bigger that had 3 toes on every hoof. Then it had like the main hoof and 2 toes that were further up the leg. Then just the main hoof and then the 1-toed hoof as in our modern horse. Now that all seems to be well and good, and actually as we go to the fossil record we find fossils of animals that had 3 toes on every foot, that had the main hoof and then 2 toes further up the leg of the animal and then the main hoof. And we'd say, wow, that proves the evolution of the horse. Just a minute, not so much, not so fast. Let's do some more good science, some more investigation. Do you know that we have living today in South America animals that have 3 toes on every leg, that have a main hoof with 2 toes further up the leg and with the main hoof or toe? That's really not evolution. Also, back to our first diagram, that Eohippus had 18 pairs of ribs. The Orehippus had 15 pairs of ribs. The Philiohippus has 19 pairs of ribs, and the Equus, our modern horse, has 18 pairs of ribs. 18, 15, 19, 18. I couldn't decide what it wants. And actually, the more up-to-date books have thoroughly removed the horse evolution from them, because these were spotty finds in one part of the world, another part of the world, another part of the world. No, none of this evolutionary sequence was found in any one given place. They were all just pieced together. One of the real landmarks and much touted evidence for evolution has been this fossil of Archaeopteryx. Now Archaeopteryx is an amazing fossil because it has certain aspects that look very much like a reptile, and yet it has wings that look like a bird and had feathers. It has claws on its wings that midway out that looks kind of like a reptile. It's got teeth in its mouth and a number of other features that look between a bird, look like a reptile. And they say, wow, this is it. This is a real evolutionary link between reptiles and birds. Now, just think for a minute. Of the birds that we know, I'd say there's kind of like 4 kinds. First are the ones that don't fly, like the ostrich. Then we have ones that do fly, like the chicken, but they don't fly too much. Then we have ones that fly better, like just the regular birds and crows and things like that. Then we have the king of flight, which would be the eagles. Now, if you were in an evolutionary process, coming from being a reptile into being a bird that would fly, what kind of feathers would you have? Well, you're just kind of getting new at this, and so it would seem to reason that the kind of feathers you're going to have are going to be basic feathers. But as it happens, we have a definitely preserved feather of an Archaeopteryx, and it's exactly the form that eagle's feathers are, designed for maximum flight. Archaeopteryx could and did fly. It was a flying creature. Now, the idea that it had claws on its wings, we have 3 living birds today that have claws on their wings. We have the Watsin, we have the ostrich, and we have the trucho. All of these have claws on their wings. Like this one of the Watsin of South America, the young use that claw on their wings to climb up through the trees until it develops enough and can take to flight, and then it quits using that claw, but they have claws there. As far as having teeth in their mouth, there are reptiles that have teeth. There are reptiles that don't have teeth. There are birds that don't have teeth, and there are some birds that do have teeth. I mean, even some of you. There's some of you that have teeth. Some of you don't have teeth. And even further, after Archaeopteryx had been talked about for some time, they found another bird 145 million years older than Archaeopteryx. And they said it was like a modern bird that you see here in this lower picture. So Archaeopteryx is just a species that existed that could fly, wasn't transitioned between anything. In the United Kingdom town of Wanton Bassett, there are amazing fresh fossils that are coming up out of a bubbling mud spring. This is located near London. It's like a giant conveyor belt. Here we have a picture of it, and just this mud just bubbles out of the ground. And in that mud is coming out shells, pristine with their natural color, that are supposedly 165 million years old. But they still have coloring as if they were fresh. And some of them even have some pieces left of actual tissue in them. Now, they can't be 165 million years old, and yet they're coming out from the ground in this mud conveyor. That's a real problem for evolution, not for creationists, because we know everything was made 6 million years ago, and there was a worldwide flood, and so a lot of them could have been buried, and the mud is just bubbling up and bringing them out of the ground. Evolutionists say sometimes the reason we don't find the intermediators between the different species is because they had a lot of real soft tissue that didn't fossilize clearly enough so that we could have a good copy of it. Well, please tell me, what could be softer tissue than a jellyfish? They're about 99% water. And yet of jellyfish, here's a picture of one, we have fossils of jellyfish. Here it is. Actual fossils of them. What could be softer? And so that is no excuse. We have fossils of everything. Now, as I mentioned in the conference about ape men, there's often articles that come out purporting all different aspects of evolution. I say, enjoy yourself. You will be amazed at the things they say. Pay attention to what they say, because they're going to mix true, good science with storytelling. The storytelling is not science. The pictures, photographs can be excellent science. This also article of Time magazine says, Evolution's Big Bang. New discoveries show that life as we know it began in an amazing biological frenzy that changed the planet almost overnight. Did you get that? They're copying us. Overnight. That means from one day to the next. That's what the Bible talks about. God did one thing on one day, another thing on the next day. It was overnight, from one day to the next. Now, as I read this article, it was an amazing article. Had some excellent photographs of some very unusual fossils. Here's one that we can see that's rather prickly looking fella. And they just kind of flipped him over and drew him this way. I don't have any problem with that. It's a good possibility of how he looked. Strange creature. Don't know that we have any of those around today. But in all of this article, I was looking for the main concluding point. And here I give it to you exactly as it reads in the article by Time magazine, backed by millions of dollars, hundreds, thousands of trained, scientific, knowledgeable people. This is what they wrote. Here then are the highlights from the tale. That's their word, not mine. The tale that scientists are piecing together of a unique and dynamic time in the history of the Earth, when continents were drifting apart, genetic programs were in flux, and tiny organisms in vast oceans dreamed of growing larger. Did you get that? tiny organisms in vast oceans dreamed of growing larger. What are they saying? Well, there was Bacteria Barbara and Bacteria Peter. And Barbara says, "Oh, Pete, I just feel so inferior. Oh, Barbie, I do too. Oh, Pete, what are we going to do? Oh, I don't know, Barbie. Oh, Barbie, I have an idea." "What? Tell me, Pete." "Listen, let's dream about growing bigger." "Oh, Pete, that's a wonderful idea." That's what the article says. They dreamed of growing bigger. And so that explained everything. You know, humans, for as far as history can tell us, has almost always dreamed of flying. And you know what? To date, we cannot fly. We have machines that take us. We can make hang gliders. But there's not a single human being that has sprouted one single feather. Dream about flying all you want. You will never grow feathers. And so this stuff, the thing is, they have this, the Cambrian explosion, as it's called, from one day to the next, all of a sudden, boom, all these creatures are there. What happened? Well, I think it just really fits that God made them. And that they happened at the bottom of the ocean. They were the first ones to be buried. And so that's where they are. By the way, do you know what a living fossil is? Again, I don't want any family jokes. Don't make fun of any of your neighbors. A living fossil is something that is assumed by evolution to have been completely extinct from the earth. And the only remembrance we have of them are some fossils. And so the thing is, all of a sudden, lo and behold, here's one of these things alive and basically unchanged after all these millions of years of evolution. That's called a living fossil. One of the most outstanding ones happened in the 1930s. Some fishermen off the coast, eastern coast of Africa, pulled up in their fishing net a coelacanth. Now the coelacanth is actually older than a dinosaur. This is like having a living dinosaur, even better, because the coelacanths, according to evolution, later became the amphibians, which later became the reptiles, which later became the dinosaurs. Well, the coelacanths are still alive. They're a fish that's about 6 feet long. Here's the fossil of one. And this article by National Geographic says that the fossilized tail looks almost identical as a photostatic copy of the tail of the real fish. Here's a picture of the coelacanth all by itself, swimming there in the depths off the coast of Africa. Still alive, basically unchanged from its fossil record. Now this man, Dr. Joachim Shevin, is an Australian who has, from private funds, his own museum of about 500 different living fossils. All kinds of things, either by photograph or actual in his museum, of the museums and the living creature, be it the coelacanth, be it different type, the flying fish, as we'll see in a minute, different insects, plants, worms, shells, a whole number of things. Here we have a couple examples of some pods that we are seeing above here, and below are the actual pods in fossil, basically unchanged. We have this mayfly. Here's the living one. Here's the one in amber, unchanged over supposed millions of years. That's what evolution says. And these are more and more embarrassing to the evolutionists, finding these living fossils, because they don't go along with this idea of evolution because they're unchanged. Here's this fossil of this special leaf. Here's the actual living leaf below, unchanged. Here's this special kind of a wasp, fossilized. Here's the living ones down below, basically unchanged over a period of some millions of years. This flying fish could always fly. Here's the fossil of them. Here's the living one. Fossils are identical. No significant change over a period of millions of years. Flying fish could always fly. The missing links are still missing. Now, the trilobites are counted to be one of the oldest multi-celled creatures that we have. Now this one, you can see on the right and left hand of this transparency what is actually the two halves of a fossil, which is a human shoe imprint. It's just the two halves. And on the left hand part, you can see where someone had actually stepped down and crushed, as the enlarged picture shows, a trilobite. It stepped down and crushed a live trilobite. You can see the dent on the right hand side of the heel of that shoe. Now trilobites supposedly were extinct some 530 million years ago. Humans only came around recently, and this human had shoes, and it had squished a trilobite. That's an amazing fossil discovery, a real blow against evolution. Now there's many stories, many quotes that we could have of different scientists. Stephen Jay Gould is a professor of geology and paleontology, study of fossils in Harvard, and he says this: we, the paleontologists, have paid a very, very high price to have the argument of Darwin. We believe that we are the only true students of the history of life, the study of fossils. Nonetheless, in order to preserve our favorite tale, evolution, of the evolution by natural selection, we perceive that our data is so bad that we never see the same process that we profess to study. He admits that as paleontologists, studies of fossils, believe in evolution, they never see it in the fossil record. A letter was written to Dr. Colin Patterson. He's the head paleontologist, studier of fossils, in the British Museum in London. He has at his disposal some 7 million fossils. He believes in evolution, wrote a book about evolution. And a letter was written to him asking in 1979 why he did not include any drawings or pictures of the intermediary fossils between species. This is his answer. I fully agree with your comments on the lack of direct illustrations of evolutionary transitions in my book. If I knew of any, fossil or living, I would certainly have included them. You suggest that an artist should be used to visualize such transformations, but where would he get the information from? I could not honestly provide it, and if I were to leave it to artistic license, would I not then mislead the reader? 7 million fossils doesn't have one connecting link. But most impressive is what we have here is the words from Darwin himself. This was written about the time that he published his book, Origin of the Species. He says this: why then is not every geological formation and every stratum full of such intermediate links? Geology assuredly does not reveal any such finely graduated organic chain, and this perhaps is the most obvious and serious objection which can be urged against my theory. The explanation lies, as I believe, in the extreme imperfection of the geological record. In other words, he's saying, geologists go into all the world and collect fossils. And they did. 120 years later, we have this comment from Dr. David Ropp, the curator of geology and the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago. He says, well, we are now 120 years after Darwin, and the knowledge of the fossil record has been greatly expanded. We now have 250,000 fossil species, but the situation hasn't changed much. The record of evolution is still surprisingly jerky, and ironically, we have even fewer examples of evolutionary transition than we had in Darwin's time. Did you catch that? They have fewer evolutionary transitions than Darwin had. Darwin had none, they have less. How do you do that? Incredible. The evolutionists themselves admit the evidence isn't there. The transitions are missing. Now, we showed you an offer earlier to make $250,000 by providing empirical science evidence for macroevolution. We got a better offer. Just go out there and find a Fishibibian, Amphitilly, or a reptbird, and you will be the richest person in the world. Name the price that you want. Neither you, nor your children, nor your grandchildren, nor your great-grandchildren will ever have to work. You'll be the richest person on the face of the earth if you find one of these. Now let me give you a little hint. If you're in school, please finish your school, do your homework, do your housework. In your free time, go look for these things. If you have a job, stay in your job, stay with your business. In your free time, go look for these things. We don't want anybody to starve to death for lack of income in case you don't find one of the missing links. And of course, the only thing that we can say with certainty about the missing links is that they're still missing, or they probably never even existed. Let me give you a breakdown of how basically all the fossils are grouped together. 95% of all fossils are marine animals with shells and other invertebrates. 95%. 95% of the 5% of the fossils that remain are algae and plants. 95% of the 0.25% remaining fossils are those of invertebrates and insects, mainly insects. 95% of the 0.0125% of the remaining fossils are vertebrates, mainly fish. 95% of the few vertebrates of land animals consist of only one bone. All of the species of the fossils represent species perfectly formed and complete. There is not even one transitional fossil. Who do you want to put your confidence in? Someone that was there at the beginning as God was, or people that are still learning? I think it's obvious that the Bible has the answer once again. Put your faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. We'll see you soon. Next time we're going to talk about mutations and cloning. See you later. God bless you.